Hey guys, what's up? It's Danielle. Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I wanted to show you some of my in progress and recently finished crochet projects. So starting off with this blanket, it's actually not done yet because I bought this yarn from Michael's. I thought it was really pretty. And I apologize if my lighting is kind of weird. I'm using natural lighting and there's a tree in front of my window. But if you can see, maybe that's better. Okay, if you can see, it has like this really cute look to it. It's not really a pattern, but it's meant to look like flowers. This is the Michael's brand of yarn, loops and threads. And I think I'm about 4 or 5 skeins in. Actually, this is about 6 skeins in. So obviously I'm not going to undo the whole blanket because it's just done in granny square. But I really love the coloring, you know. I think it looks like really nice and homey and kind of like the vibe that I'm going for in my living room, which, if we're being honest, is Little House on the Prairie-esque. So anyways, I really love how this looks. The only problem I have, because I've never used the Loops and Threads brand before, at least not for this type of, yeah, you just saw that, right? Not for this type of yarn anyways, but the biggest pet peeve I have between this and the Bernat, however you say it, yarn, is that this pulls apart very easily. I've never had that problem with the Bernat, whatever you call it. And I don't know if any of you have had the same problem, but I've had that same issue with every single skein. So I probably will not be repurchasing this yarn after I'm done with this blanket. So just a little side note for you guys, if you're looking to get some, you know, yarn from Michael's, I guess. All right. This is something I literally just finished today. So I made a headband, and this is obviously for the winter. So I wanted it to kind of have like a cable knit look to it. I actually do have a hat that I made a couple years ago in this same yarn. So if you can tell, it has kind of like a little iridescent, like there's like a little iridescent part of the yarn that runs all the way through. So I really like that for like winter time, you know, just in general. And I actually really love how the back turned out. So I'll show this to you guys in a minute, but I did get a new needle, and I think that's partially what helped. But I actually really like how that looks for whatever reason. And all I did was I just used my own head as a measurement, and I just like it to cover the entire length of my ear plus a little bit at the top and bottom. So really love how this turned out. I cannot wait for it to get colder so I can actually start wearing this outside. And yeah, I just think it's really cute. Also, kitty disclaimer, because here comes Baki. So you've been warned. Sorry, you can see his butt. All right. This is not something that I recently finished, but I do want to show you guys what I do with my leftover cotton yarn, because I have found that this is probably like the best thing. So you guys know my love of pot holders, right? Well, I decided that I should have a couple that are larger. So this is like if I'm moving a pot that's really hot, or if I'm handling cast iron that requires 2 hands, because sometimes my wrists, you know, you need some help, right? So that's basically what I've done with my extra cotton yarn is excuse me, sir, I've just been like turning it into giant pot holders. You can also make placemats out of it, I guess, but I really like this because, again, if you're handling something where, you know, you need two hands, like maybe you're grabbing a bowl or something, this is nice to have. This was done in thermal stitch, which you guys might know by now is something that I'm a huge fan of. The pink did bleed a little bit into the white, but this isn't something that's meant for like decor. It's actually meant to be used. So when I make another one, I would say I should probably wash it beforehand and not use white. But again, the point is that I have something to use and kind of like rough up a little bit. You can see I have some yarn ends that are poking out after I washed it. So I'm gonna have to take it. Sir, excuse me, can you get in your nest? Thank you. Okay. So yeah, just thought I would share that. I mean, obviously everybody does something different with their scrap yarn. I've also collected scrap yarn before and used it to stuff other projects. So like, perfect example, I have a Viking hat that I made for my brother, and I did use some of my scrap yarn ends to stuff the horns. So I actually have to take that with me when I go to my mom's house for Christmas this year because I have to fit it onto his head, like with the horns and everything. But this is just a really great option. You know, again, you can use it as like a placemat. The other thing I like to use this for is, since I do canning, I can just lie this down on my countertops and I can just put my jars down as they cool. So that's also another option if you're, you know, into that. Also, like if you have a big family and, you know, you got to make a lot of food all the time, this is great to put hot stuff on. There's so many different uses. Yeah. Okay, I made this a little while ago. I don't think I shared it with you guys. By the way, this is NSFW. I'm not going to say what it says, but you can clearly see. So this was a pattern that I found on Etsy. I got some little yarn bits from another project, but this is a pattern that I found on Etsy, and I was going to put a back on it, but now I can't remember what size hook I used. It looks like kind of maybe like a 4.5 mil. I don't know. Maybe I used a 5 mil. Actually, the spacing makes me think 5 mil. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cute. And it's my favorite word. So don't come for me. All right. The next thing I'm working on. So I've mentioned before, I think, that I'm starting to get into doilies. Now, my mom made doilies way back in the day, like back in the 80s before she ever had kids. And I am literally not following a pattern for this. I'm just kind of doing my own thing. So maybe at some point I can give you guys a pattern if anybody would be interested when I finish it. But I'm using this crochet thread. And then I'm also using, I think it's like a 1.5 millimeter hook. Something like that. If I could find it, that would be great. Oh, that's right. I'm using the yellow one. So this is, yeah, a 1.5 millimeter hook. And this is a lot different than what I'm used to because, first of all, my hands are huge, as I've mentioned to you guys before. And, you know, it's hard to go from using primarily bigger hooks to using a 1.5 millimeter. So, I don't know. This is probably just going to be something that, like, sits in my kitchen or, like, on the kitchen table, something like that. But I just thought it was cute. I really should get some spray starch for when I finish it. But it's just one of the things that I have that's in progress. And then another thing that is currently in progress. So I am not sure if I ever showed it, but I did make a snowflake garland a couple years ago for Christmas, like for my fireplace mantle. And I will have the pattern that I used linked below. It's actually a video, and it's like a really quick, like 5-minute snowflake. I used a 5mm hook for this. You might want to go a little bit bigger, or you might want to use smaller size yarn than I did. But it's, you know, it's a cute little snowflake. So again, I'm using that really pretty white iridescent yarn. And I decided I wasn't going to make a garland out of this. I'm going to make these so that they like hang at different heights. And then I think I'm going to put it at the entrance to my kitchen. Like, you know, as part of my decor for like the winter, I guess. All right, moving on. I also have this blanket, which I'm going to zoom you guys out a little bit. So I've been trying to make this blanket for, I think since before the pandemic. And at the time I was in a very different place in life. I was, you know, gonna move in with a guy, and you know, that went to hell. But anyways, so this is going to be a massive star blanket. I can't really show you the whole thing because even this is like out of frame. But I'm using this kind of like cream colored acrylic. And I know I said I don't really like acrylic. It's true, I don't. Just because the texture is really rough, and I'm not a fan. I prefer cotton. But, you know, then again, I don't really use acrylic anymore unless I'm making blankets, just because it's more cost effective. And this I thought would be kind of nice to actually like finish. The problem is that it takes forever because this is done completely in double crochet. So, and then, you know, you got some picots, but those are not as big of a deal because this is all double crochet. So I will put the link to the lady whose pattern I used for this below because I've actually been using it for a couple of years. That's how much I love the pattern. And I just think it's really good. It's solid. She explains it really well, and you can't go wrong. I actually do have a blanket around this size that I made for my cat Mochi a couple years ago, and he loves it. He loves it. Like, he still lays on it, and he lets me tuck him in because he's my child. But all right, so moving right along, we're coming to the end, but let me see. Grab that. And I grab this big old thing. Okay. So here we go. All right. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Moodang. Moodang is a pygmy hippo that lives in Thailand. And everybody and their mother, including me, we've all become obsessed with Moodang because she's like, you know, she's a very sassy little hippo. So I saw somebody on Instagram who made like a smaller Moodang, probably about this big. So probably like a quarter of the size of this one. And I was like, I need to do that. So I went out and I bought yarn. And I started on it right away as soon as I saw it. So the body is completely done. This is all done in single crochet just because I used like just regular stuffing for it. And, you know, I'm not using like batting or anything. and I didn't want the stuffing to come out. I should have done something different though, because if I ever have to wash this, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I got the little legs on there. Some of them are a little wonky, but that's okay. And this is how it's going to sit. You can see where I was joining, but that's okay. So the only thing I need to work on now is like the head and then like more of like the accent stuff. So I have this little light pink piece that is going to be like for the belly. I did have, as you can see, another one on here before, but it was way too large and it got all bunched up and it just didn't look right. So I decided to make it smaller. And then jumbled up in here, I have the two little eyes, which I still need to add like an accent to with white yarn. So still got to work on that. And then this is going to be like the snout. I thought it would be easier to start with the snout rather than the rest of the head. And then somewhere floating around one of these baskets, I have the little ears. Oh, here we go. So here are the ears. And if you look at Moodang's actual ears, they kind of like fold like this. So that's how I'm going to sew them on, is so that they kind of fold like that, like when they're on the actual, you know, stuffed animal. So that's just what I have done for now. But again, I want to stress that this is from yarn that I bought at Michael's, like the loops and thread stuff. This is the Bernat or Bernat, whatever you want to call it. So if you pull it, like I'm not even really pulling it, I'm just running my fingers over it, it's not going to come undone. So lesson learned, always buy Bernat, never buy the bad shit. But all right, so there's that. Now, the last couple of things I'm going to show you are crochet related, but they're not like actual projects. So, first of all, I got these little squishy grippy things off of Amazon. I will have them linked below because they're pretty cheap. And as you can see, like you can pick a different one depending on the size of your hook. So, my problem is that the way I hold my hook is like this. I guess it's, you know, I mean, I was an orchestra kid back in the day. And this is like kind of how you would hold your bow. So my pinky starts to hurt after a while. So that was the main reason why I got these. And I don't know. It was like 5 of these for like $6 or $7. So I figure you can't go wrong with that. And then the last thing I want to show you guys, this is from Michael's, because Michael's is closer to me than Joann's. But I just got this really long, like, darning sewing needle, whatever you want to call it. And this has been so nice to have. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get yarn like this in there. I don't know, maybe I think I could do that. Okay. But I just wanted something that was a little bit longer just because it's different than what I have. I have, you know, a couple of sewing needles, but not a whole lot. But I felt like it would be easier with one that's longer, and it definitely is. So anyways, that is everything that I have for you guys today. I will keep you updated on when I finish more of my projects. But anyways, let me know what you guys are working on. Like, are you working on blankets? You making hats now since it's getting colder? You working on like Christmas stuff or like birthday presents? Like, just let me know. I always like to see people's inspiration and, you know, what they're all about. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll talk to you on my next video. Bye, guys.